One of the top alternatives to Ethereum over the last year has been Fantom, and this is because its platform has been ground zero for DeFi in cryptocurrency. Recently, two of Fantom's most prolific personalities left its ecosystem, and this has left many wondering what it means for the project, and of course, the price action of FTM going forward. Today, I'm going to give you a brief breakdown of Fantom, bring you up to speed on some of the project's most important updates, and tell you why FTM still has lots of fuel left in the tank. Before we get spooky, I need to cover my booty. If you're here for financial advice, you must be kooky. That's because education and entertainment are my only duties. Please contact a financial advisor if your portfolio is looking droopy. Also note that I do hold FTM, but I won't let that make my judgment loopy. If you're new or a long-time fan, my name is Guy and I'd like to welcome you to my crypto land. High-quality crypto content is the defining feature of the Coin Bureau brand. Coins, tokens, news and reviews explained in a way that's easy to understand. If this is the kind of stuff you need, subscribe to the channel and ping that notification bell, please. If you don't think you have time to watch until the end, you can use the timestamps below to skip ahead. Just remember that the longer you stay, the longer this information will stick around in your head. Now that you know where you tread, let's see why Fantom is far from being dead. If you're unfamiliar with Fantom, here's the lowdown. Fantom was founded in 2018 by a South Korean computer scientist named An Byung-ik, who stepped away from the project in 2019. Fantom was built by the Fantom Foundation, which is registered in the Cayman Islands and headed by Australian computer scientist Michael Kong. Fantom is famous primarily because of Andre Cronje, a DeFi developer who helped build Fantom, created many decentralized applications in its ecosystem, and served as the project's technical advisor, until very recently. More about that later. Fantom raised almost $40 million across various ICOs in 2018, and the Fantom mainnet went live at the end of 2019. Now, in contrast to most cryptocurrencies, Fantom does not use a blockchain. Instead, it uses a directed acyclic graph, or DAG, which is secured by a novel proof-of-stake consensus mechanism called Lachesis. This setup allows Fantom to process up to 20,000 transactions per second, but because Fantom leverages the Ethereum virtual machine for smart contracts, complex transactions are limited to a few hundred TPS. Fantom's speed comes at a cost, and that's decentralization. Fantom currently has around 60 validators, and a few of these validators are run by the Fantom Foundation. This makes Fantom relatively centralized. To ensure security, Fantom validators must stake a minimum of 500,000 FTM. There's a cap on how much they can stake. They must store Fantom's full transaction history, and 100% of their stake will be slashed, i.e. destroyed, if they try and manipulate transactions. In exchange, Fantom validators can earn over 17% per year. Delegation is also possible with just one FTM, and the returns depend on how long your FTM is locked up for. Note that there is a 7-day unlock period regardless of how long you lock up for, and delegators also risk a 100% slash, so choose your nodes wisely. Delegation can be easily done using the F-Wallet, which also gives you access to Fantom's in-house DeFi suite. Fantom DeFi centers around a stablecoin called FUSD, which can be minted using both staked and unstaked FTM as collateral. FUSD can then be used to invest in dozens of synthetic assets, including other cryptocurrencies like BTC and ETH, in the form of FBTC and FETH. Besides paying for transaction fees, staking, and minting synthetic assets, FTM is also used for governance, and Fantom's governance dashboard can also be accessed via the F-Wallet. 1 FTM equals 1 vote, and 100 FTM must be burned to table a proposal. Quorum thresholds depend on the type of proposal being tabled, and respondents have the option of stating how much they agree or disagree with a proposal using a 5-point scale rather than a simple yes or no. Because Fantom uses the EVM for smart contracts, it's also compatible with MetaMask, and it's seen over 200 dApps deploy on its DAG. Fantom's DeFi protocols alone currently hold over $5 billion in total value locked. According to Fantom's FTM Scan Explorer, there are over 2.5 million unique Fantom wallet addresses, which makes it one of the most adopted cryptocurrencies on the market. Now, if you want to learn more about Fantom, you can refer to my previous video about the project using the link in the description. Okay, so it's been a few months since I last covered Fantom, and guess what? A lot has happened in the interim. Indeed, a lot has happened in just the last few weeks, but whoa there, I'll get to that in a moment. In mid-November last year, Fantom lowered the requirements for projects looking to participate in its $370 million FTM incentive program. For reference, Fantom initiated this program last summer, and it involves rewarding DeFi projects with FTM based on the total value locked they attract. By lowering the threshold in November, Fantom was able to attract dozens of additional projects, which is somewhat surprising given that the incentive program had already caused a 6x increase in TVL. In late November, the Fantom Foundation crunched the numbers on just how energy efficient Fantom is and found that the entire Fantom network consumes less energy per year than the average American home. So yeah, pretty efficient. In early December, the Fantom Foundation announced a partnership with the Bangladeshi arm of Celis, a digital consulting and software engineering company headquartered in Switzerland. The partnership will see Celis promote the adoption of Fantom's technology within Bangladesh's IT industry. For context, Fantom's original focus as a project was smart cities, and it has actually secured multiple partnerships with public and private institutions in many countries in Central Asia. In late December, Binance US listed FTM, making it Fantom's first listing on a US cryptocurrency exchange. In early January, Cronje revealed the initial plans for a DeFi project on Fantom that he would be building with the help of another well-known DeFi developer named Daniele Sestagali. The announcement caused FTM to pump with a capital P. By the end of January, Fantom had become the third largest cryptocurrency by total value locked, and even surpassed Ethereum by daily transactions. At the end of January, centralized crypto lending and borrowing platform Nexo also added support for Fantom, making it possible to earn up to 18% per year on FTM. In early February, Andre and Danny's DeFi project, dubbed Solidly, took the Fantom ecosystem by storm when it launched, and in the coming weeks, it accumulated nearly $3 billion in total value locked. Solidly is an automated market maker or AMM-based decentralized exchange or DEX like Uniswap. One of the differences is that it also supports stablecoin swaps with low slippage, which eliminates the need for having a dedicated stablecoin DEX like Curve Finance. The biggest difference between Solidly and other DEXs, though, is that locking up the Solid token not only gives you the right to participate in protocol governance, but also gives you a cut of protocol fees. This is different because almost every other DEX only gives fees to liquidity providers, or LPs, who provide two cryptocurrencies as liquidity for AMM pools. Solidly flips this model on its head by instead directing those fees to Solid token stakers, who in turn get to vote on which trading pairs receive the most Solid token rewards. This incentivizes LPs to provide liquidity to those pools, even though they aren't getting any trading fees. Now, Solidly is a lot more complicated than this, and I'll leave a link in the description to Andre's Medium posts explaining the project if you're interested. While you're at it, you can also check out my video about Olympus DAO, since Solidly is inspired by it. That'll be in the description too. I digress. In early February, Fantom also announced that Stader Labs would be introducing liquid staking for FTM. As far as I understand, using staked FTM outside of Fantom's in-house DeFi suite was not possible up to this point. In early March, Anchor became the second crypto project to offer liquid staking for FTM. And then, out of the blue, on the 6th of March, Anton Nell, a senior solutions architect at the Fantom Foundation and close friend of Andre Cronje, announced on Twitter that the pair would be leaving the crypto space for good. Now, for those who don't know, Andre has left the crypto space twice before, at the start of 2020 and near the end of 2020. During that period, Andre was working almost exclusively on Ethereum, but when he re-emerged late last year, he turned his focus to Fantom. As part of his announcement, Anton noted that he and Andre would also be, quote, terminating 25 apps and services at the beginning of April. As you can imagine, this caused all the cryptocurrencies associated with those projects to crash, including Fantom's FTM. The thing is that Anton didn't mean that the decentralized applications that they made would be decommissioned. It's the front ends that they owned and operated that would be shutting down, and all these front ends were replaced shortly afterwards. More importantly, most of the projects that Anton and Andre worked on had already become relatively independent of their creators and initial contributors. From the outside looking in, however, the announcement looked a lot like two insiders that had sold the top and bailed. So much so that a DeFi journalist outfit called Rekt News did some digging and dug up what it believed to be evidence of the Fantom Foundation dumping FTM over the last few months. The only problem is that the wallet address it identified wasn't being used to dump FTM at all. It was being used for Fantom's multi-chain cross-chain bridge, at least according to Multichain's co-founder and CEO. This prompted Rekt News to delete the article and issue an apology, and the Fantom Foundation followed up with an explanation of its own. While there were still one or two unanswered questions, the Fantom Foundation did fully address the misconceptions about Andre's role at Fantom and specified that he had been an advisor and nothing more, as far as the core project goes. It also addressed the FUD about all 25 projects being terminated. On Twitter, the Fantom Foundation also highlighted the fact that there are over 40 developers working on Fantom, and it's worth pointing out that Fantom Foundation CEO Michael Kong is himself a specialist in the Ethereum virtual machine and is working closely with esteemed academics to improve it. If you're wondering why Andre and Anton left the crypto industry, the answer seems to be stress. Andre has mentioned on many occasions that being a popular crypto personality has taken a serious toll on his mental health, and he's even experienced threats against his physical health over off-the-cuff comments about certain crypto projects, because yes, some people in crypto think that this is acceptable. Now, this stress seems to have increased significantly at the end of January, when it was discovered that the aforementioned Danny Sestagali had been secretly working on a project called Wonderland with one of the co-founders of Quadriga CX, a cryptocurrency exchange that shut down under deeply suspicious circumstances. Never mind the fact that the co-founder in question had, shall we say, a questionable past. Andre's stress levels obviously went through the roof as a result, and everyone started wondering if he was involved in any way. And when you combine that with the intense regulatory scrutiny we've seen on DeFi protocols and developers as of late, it's easy to understand why Andre would call it quits. Now, the only thing that doesn't seem to add up is Andre's attitude before he left. My impression from watching interviews with Andre in the weeks prior was that even though he was clearly stressed, he had no shortage of plans for decentralized applications he was clearly excited to develop, and Andre never came across as the kind of person who would abandon these aspirations on a whim. As such, I suspect that there was something sudden and extremely stressful that forced Andre to exit the industry, and he's probably the only one who knows what that is. My best guess is regulations, because there's nothing banks and VCs hate more than a rogue DeFi developer they can't control. Now, if you're looking for other crazy crypto stories that don't exactly add up, you can check out my video about that bombastic Bitfinex couple using the link in the description. Anyways, as you might have gathered by now, FTM's recent price action is a mixed bag. It rallied like mad at the beginning of the year and almost hit a new all-time high. Note that this impressive price action was while most other cryptocurrencies were trading sideways or even crashing. Today, though, FTM doesn't look nearly as bullish. As I shoot this video, it's down almost 3x from its all-time high, and I see a nasty double top pattern on the long-term price charts. You don't want to know where the target is if that pattern breaks to the downside, believe me. Before you panic, though, take a moment to consider the fact that Fantom's fundamentals are still looking extremely strong. For starters, all the FTM allocated to the team and early investors finished vesting in late 2020, and chances are they've already sold a substantial amount of that FTM. This is good because it means there will be less FTM for them to sell in the future, and therefore less price suppression they can cause. As I mentioned earlier, Fantom has over 2.5 million unique wallet addresses, and as you can see, this trend doesn't seem to be slowing down. An even more important on-chain metric is the number of daily transactions, which has taken a bit of a nosedive, but nonetheless remains in a strong long-term uptrend. In terms of total value locked, Fantom has seen some slowdown on that side as well, but is likewise in a long-term uptrend. FTM's recent listing on Binance US also suggests that it could be listing on other American exchanges, which would result in even more investment. As far as I can tell, one of the only things that could negatively affect Fantom is Ethereum's transition from proof of work to proof of stake, which could see lots of capital move from Ethereum alternatives to the mother chain if fees are manageable and transactions are speedy. You can find out how far along Ethereum is on that front by watching my most recent update about the project, which you can find in the description. Anyhow, whether FTM can rise to reclaim its previous all-time high ultimately depends on, yep, you guessed it, the Fantom Roadmap. Although Fantom doesn't have an official roadmap, upcoming milestones can be found in interviews and AMAs with members of the Fantom Foundation. In a November interview, Fantom Foundation CEO Michael Kong reiterated that they're exploring decentralized storage solutions like Filecoin and Arweave to store Fantom's transaction history. This is important because the size of the Fantom DAG is growing rapidly, and eventually it'll become too big for more than a few validators to store in full. Michael also mentioned that the team is focused on shipping the Fantom virtual machine, or FVM, which will make it possible to deploy more efficient smart contracts and dApps on the Fantom DAG. In a February presentation, Michael revealed that the team will be improving the speed of the Ethereum virtual machine that Fantom is currently using for smart contracts, and seemed to imply that they will be increasing the size of Fantom blocks so that they can fit more transactions. This will mean more TPS. In an interview earlier this month, Michael addressed the FUD around Andre's departure and said anyone who still doubts that Andre didn't play a central role could easily check the Fantom GitHub and see all the other developers who are actively committing code to the project. Oddly enough, Michael stated that Fantom will be focused on growing other elements of its ecosystem going forward that don't relate to DeFi, tacitly confirming that Andre played a significant role on that front. I will also point out that Michael doesn't seem to know exactly why Andre left crypto either, but suspects it had to do with stress. This is arguably evidence that something unexpected did in fact occur. Anywho, additional Fantom milestones can be found in an AMA posted to the Fantom blog last December, and there are a few worth pointing out. Firstly, the Fantom team will be phasing out the freely traded version of FUSD, which has consistently been sitting below its $1 peg. Secondly, the Fantom Foundation is working on establishing more fiat-to-crypto gateways for native FTM, something that will help with the adoption of Fantom. Third, Michael mentioned that they're working on implementing the same data storage solution as Ethereum for Fantom, while they explore decentralized storage solutions. Fourth, it seems the Fantom team is aiming for 200 to 300 validators in total, and Michael asserted that the only thing stopping Fantom from reaching this target is the high staking threshold that can, and hopefully will, be changed via governance. Fifth, the Fantom team is working on shipping an update to the F-wallet that was originally scheduled for the latter half of last year. Sixth, the Fantom Foundation will likely set up a governance forum. Right now, all governance proposals are discussed on the Fantom Discord. Now, the last milestone that stuck out to me was more of a question, and that's what happens to Fantom when the last FTM is minted at the end of September 2023. Note that this is only about a year and a half from now. All Michael said was that they're discussing how to set up FTM's tokenomics so that they're sustainable well past that point, since otherwise the only incentives for validators would be transaction fees, which currently make up only about 20% of block rewards. This brings me to the concerns I have about Fantom, but first let me direct you to my video about the top staking cryptocurrencies for 2022. That is in the description for you to watch later. So, the first concern I have about Fantom relates to the one and only Andre Cronje. I'll start by saying that it's pretty clear Andre isn't all that important to Fantom at the layer 1 level, and probably hadn't been for quite some time. That said, it's clear that Andre's absence has implications for Fantom's ecosystem as a whole. Besides the fact that Andre did still seem to be actively involved in his role as Fantom's technical advisor, Andre's presence with the project attracted tens, possibly hundreds of thousands of users, and likely dozens of developers and DeFi protocols as well. This, in turn, created lots of demand for FTM, and it was probably the primary driver behind FTM's pump last autumn, when Andre announced his third return, and earlier this year when Andre revealed he was working on a DeFi protocol for Fantom. On that note, I think it's very possible that Andre will return again at some point, but I reckon this really depends on why he left. If it's just stress from being the center of attention, then history has shown it's something he can bounce back from. If I'm correct about there being something bigger going on behind the scenes, however, there's a good chance that Andre's exodus is permanent this time. As far as what this would mean for Fantom, it's going to be tough to find an individual developer, or even a team of developers, who can fill Andre's shoes on the ecosystem side, but it's possible and it's been done before. It's also important not to lose sight of all Fantom's upcoming milestones. These are likely to have a positive impact on FTM's price in the short term, and likely lead to even more gains in the long term. Now this ties in to my second concern, and that's Fantom's sustainability. Again, I'll start by saying that it's reassuring that the Fantom Foundation is hyper-aware that Fantom only has about a year and a half before it runs out of staking rewards to incentivize validators. As sure as I am that they'll find a way to ensure those incentives remain, I can't think of any solutions that don't involve increasing transaction fees to increase validator rewards, or removing FTM's maximum supply to extend FTM's inflation. Both options are not ideal to say the least, and could not only do damage to FTM's price, but potentially the legitimacy of the project as a whole, particularly if FTM's supply is adjusted. My final concern relates to transparency, specifically about what wallets the Fantom Foundation owns and operates, and what exactly it's doing with the FTM it has. Thankfully, this is something that can be easily addressed, and it's something that the Fantom team is starting to become aware of as well. In sum then, I still believe Fantom has some serious potential. It certainly faces its fair share of headwinds, but I'm confident that it will overcome its current and future challenges. If Fantom manages to meet all its upcoming milestones, I think there's a very good chance that FTM could become a top 10 cryptocurrency. And that is why I still hold FTM. Speaking of which, if you're wondering how my crypto portfolio performed last year, you can check out my video about that using the link in the description. And that is all for today's video about Fantom. If you found it helpful, you can let me know by smashing that like button. Remember to subscribe to the channel and ping that notification bell too, because you don't want to be late to the next video when it hits the tube. While you wait for my return, here's where you can go if you have time to burn. Coin Bureau clips for behind the scenes and original flicks. The Coin Bureau podcast that's packed with crypto facts. My Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok where I share my thoughts. My Telegram, where I tell you what cryptos and trends I think are hot. I also have a weekly newsletter where you'll find other cryptos I hold as part of my portfolio, and a deals page where you can get the extra boost you need to help yours grow. You can find your way to these resources using the links down below. Thank you so much for watching. Until we meet again, stay cool and stay crypto.